I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Man, that is a sad clown.
Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Gloom, bringing you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha Impact, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom.
We got a really special guest. We're glad we could just capture a sliver of this guy's time today. He's a founding Site-Q at The Helix. We got to plant that shovel flag for the first time and expand us a little bit further north, and also help to lead the Break the Cycle 200, which is a bike ride I'm sure he'll tell us about here in a little bit. Just a great guy. If you had the chance to talk to him on a pre-run, you may also wonder why he wears some hosiery on one of his legs, and I'm sure he'll tell us about that. But Pantyhose is on the Gloom. So Pantyhose, welcome. And if you would just start us off, who EH'd, what was the first workout like? And if guys don't know, indulge us in the why'd you get the name Pantyhose story.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Well, thanks, fellas. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. So my first workout was August 15th, 2020. And I was EH'd by a good friend of mine, Birdman. Birdman and I know each other because we have sons that are the same age, go to school together, played sports together, we'd coach together. So it was very subtle. It definitely wasn't a headlock, I wouldn't say, but he'd mentioned a couple times that he was part of a workout group. And I distinctly remember I think it was in the spring of 20, we were standing on a ball field before a baseball game that our boys were playing in. And he just mentioned it. He's like, yeah, I work out. Yeah, I got this group of guys I work out with. It's a really great workout, but it's even better as the guys. And I kind of pawned it off, a little bit. I was, at the time, I think I was probably a year or two into what I like to call a boutique gym. And so I had been doing Orange Theory, which is great. It's a great workout for a couple of years. And then it must have been, it was at some point that year I had done something to injure myself, and I'd been out of Orange Theory for a number of months, and reached back out to him and said, hey, are you still doing that workout thing? And he said, yeah, you want to come? I said, yeah, let's do it. So I came. The first workout was at the Oracle, and it was led by Sparty, and it happened to be his first anniversary workout. So it was a string of pearls workout, and I remember it pretty well. It was, there was a lot of running, which I was good with at the time. And we came back and, did the spiel and got in the center of the circle. I don't think anybody told me though, just to keep talking. So I kind of quit talking as soon as I heard the first name roll out, which was Pantyhose. And the reason that rolled out is because it was in August, and everyone is wearing shorts. And Plague, as you mentioned, I have the honor of wearing a nice piece of hosiery on my left leg that looks like pantyhose. So I don't know, I can't remember who from the pack said pantyhose, but Sparty must have been feeling impatient and wanting to get to coffee or something. And he's like, your name's Pantyhose. And so I left the circle. I walked back out to the outside, and that's the way it went. And I think there were a couple of people that were probably worried about, is this guy ever going to come back? We just gave him the name Pantyhose. But as you know, Plague, we ran enough and talked enough about it. It's kind of a badge of honor. I say I don't have to wear it. I get to wear it because the alternative could have been a hell of a lot different. So
just for clarification, so you showed up and you already were wearing that piece of equipment, or you just adopted it from that day forward?
No. So Bodie, I wear a compression sock on my left leg just for circulation because of an infection I had back when I was like 20. So when I was in college, I contracted a flesh-eating bacteria that resulted in me spending about 2 weeks in the hospital. And when I left the hospital, they had removed basically all the skin and all the flesh essentially from my knee down to my ankle on my left leg, basically everything down to my calf muscle. And because of that, now I wear a fitted compression sock that helps with circulation and compression. So that's why. So.
Well, now I feel bad for the times that I saw you. I'm like, that's kind of gimmicky, but I guess it's true.
Well, Tony, you're not the first, and you won't be the last. So.
So as you can tell in Pantyhose's voice and as he's telling the story, this is not his first podcast. So we will share the link in the show notes for his interview with cataracts, because he goes into a lot of detail about the flesh-eating bacteria, which I think is it's a really cool story if guys have a chance to listen to that. So as you came in, you were doing some boutique type fitness.
How did we compare to Orange Theory?
It depends. I mean, the guys are okay, So no, the workouts, Orange Theory workouts are great. They're great, but you get out what you put in, obviously, right? So you got slackers, you got guys and gals that kick some tail. But the biggest thing is going. I was a morning person anyway, so I was going at 5 o'clock in the morning there. But now I get to just go hang out with a bunch of dudes at 5 o'clock in the morning instead of having to deal with and guys that want to be where they're at, right? They're not out because they're paying to be somewhere and they feel obligated. It's they're there because that's what they choose to do every morning and they're happy to be there. So workout wise, it compares. It's right up there, Pony.
You made a comment that you at the time were into running. Have you changed your mind about running, or you still like?
No, I actually run a lot more now than I did then. I mean, it was, like I said, I was kind of at a transition where I had stopped going there because of some injury, and I was at a point to get ready to go back in, and wasn't really looking forward to paying $150 a month to go back into a gym. And I thought I gotta give this a try, and it was that Saturday was great, and I couldn't wait to get back out on. I think it was the next Tuesday I went back out, and been coming probably 3 to 6 times a week since then. So
nice. Well, I'm sure that so I don't think you get a cool nickname with Orange Theory. So then you never really got credit for the flesh-eating bacteria. You're a survivor. So I think it's good. I think you won.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, so you knew Birdman. I look at you as a guy who's kind of always had close male friendships or relationships, but curious, as you came into the group, how did that progress from a second F perspective for you?
Yeah. Where it progressed for me was a lot on, in the pre-runs. So I wasn't a guy that could, and still can't to a certain extent, go to coffee a ton, just with some, commitments with the kids and getting them to school and stuff in the mornings. But I think, like I said, I started in August. I think it was probably in October at some point. I started being cognizant that when I would show up to beat downs, that, hey, there are these guys that looked like they just come in from a run. And I asked Birdman, and I said, hey, what's with these pre-run things, and where do I get on into that? And so I think like October, November that year is kind of when I started pre-running, and then again started just to kind of accelerate the fitness aspect of it a little bit, but realized pretty early on that it was more than just about the fitness. And that's really where a lot of the connections that I feel that I have within the packs come from, that 25 minutes before the beatdown, when we go on a 5K or 5 mile run or whatever it is now. So that's where I get a lot of my second F, I think, and that's what's been good for me.
Yeah, I will say, so thinking back to other podcast episodes that you were on, so we have, and you may know this, Pantyhose, but we have a pretty big listenership or a lot of followers out there. So for those of you that have listened to the episode with Chucky ends up being the main character of that episode, but we had attempted an interview with Pantyhose at that time, and there was not any footage that we could keep. So anyway, so we ran and had some good conversations. And there is, to me, what I love, and it's pre-running, pre-rucking, even now the pre-Smurf stuff. There is a lot of second F that happens there, that I think we maybe underestimate. Like it's really not just about the fitness aspect. So thanks for pointing that out. Curious, as you have been to coffee, tell me about like some of the other things like TNT or Q Source or maybe just a standard coffee. How's that been? What do you think of those things?
Yeah. So I remember Birdman, when he first started TNT, I remember him telling me about it even before he put it in play at the berm. I remember coming back from Tampa and trying to explain to me what it was. I was kind of scratching my head a little bit, and I was like, well, what? I don't, how is it different? And how will it be different? But the great thing, about TNT, I think, is that it forces you to kind of flex a little bit and continue to be vulnerable, continue to be a little bit uncomfortable, and really talk about those things that, are maybe weighing on you or maybe weighing on others, and you don't even realize that you have that same thing in common, right? So I think that's the great thing. It's more of a, you still get to have the coffee and that fellowship, but it's more of, intentional conversation focused on, one or two aspects of what may be going on in that person's life at that time. So I think that's a cool thing. The other thing I like doing, and we started doing this at the Helix, was just having coffee on site, because I think there's a lot of guys that have 5 minutes or maybe 10 minutes, but don't have 25 or 30 minutes, right? So for those on-site coffees, we found that we got a lot of guys sticking around, and even so that don't even drink coffee. I can remember a number of guys when we launched Helix stuck around and weren't drinking anything. They just hung out for the fellowship. So it provided, an opportunity for them, not to have to drive 5 or 10 minutes to go have another session.
So was that kind of born out of you saying that you had some pre-existing obligations to your kids in the morning, so decided, hey, I need something for myself?
Well, no, it was born by the fact that we were planning on going to Village Inn. There's a Village Inn that's had a sign on it. Village Inn that's like a half mile south of the Helix, right on Maple there. It's had an opening soon sign, I think, for 2 years. And so when I launched the Helix, I thought, well, it's got to be opening soon. It's been an hour, right? Or I mean, it's been a year, right? And it never happened. So we're like, let's just do coffee on site. So, and it's just great being outside, and because the next closest place was 1.5 miles away, and you lose people. So, but it may have been a little self-serving, but may or may not.
Okay, so you were friends with Birdman before you started. You get into this group. Tell me about the relationship, like some of the, or did you know other guys, or because trying to just kind of get from your perspective, like how do we kind of bring you closer or deepen those relationships within F3?
Yeah, so I didn't know anyone else. I'm trying to think through now, but Birdman was the only one I knew, and he didn't talk about it a ton, like when he and I were together or anything, just kind of floated it out there. But there's been others that, like Chucky's a prime example, that Chucky and I have kids same age, go to school together. We probably knew of each other, but had never met. And I remember when Birdman, I think, EH'd him, and that's, if you haven't heard that story, you probably should, because that's a pretty interesting story as well. But when he EH'd him, I knew he was coming, and but that relationship just fostered just out of pre-runs and beatdowns, so Chucky's probably one of the best friends I got right now. I mean, we talk probably 3 or 4 times a week, regardless of whether we're at beatdowns or not. But it's just interesting that that relationship probably wouldn't have ever happened, if it wasn't for F3. But the other thing I find interesting is just how close and how comfortable you can get with people within the organization, and how quickly those relationships can build and gain trust. And everybody's heard this, we've talked about it, but how those relationships are so much tighter than folks that I've known for years, just because of the conversations we've had, the struggles we've endured together. It just makes those relationships that much stronger.
Yeah, you kind of hit on what I was going to ask. We talked about this concept of the sifter, like talking about hitting on legacy friends, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Curious on where you were at in terms of male community. I guess here in Omaha, I don't know if you're from here or from anywhere else, where you were at there. And then actually, have you had the opportunity to kind of share this, like what you've experienced with any of those other friends, any of those legacy friends?
Yeah, a little. So I grew up in Southeast Iowa and moved to Omaha about 17 years ago. Didn't really have any friends out here at the time. So, if we're talking, friends and community that I've met in Omaha, it's primarily been through, where most of us meet our friends, either through work, through, church, or probably most of my friends now I'm introduced to through my kids, right? My kids have friends, and we meet their parents. But it's been interesting. I've been able to to EH some guys here at the office and kind of grow that. And then what I did find out, after I started F3, that there's even a couple of guys, Biff for one, that I work with, but didn't even have any idea that he was part of F3. I found out that Biff was part of F3 because I think about a week or two in, an instant message popped up on my computer, and it just said, "Hey, Pantyhose." And so I'm like, what the hell? How does he know? So it's just interesting, those connections you make, and then you realize, hey, you're part of this thing too. That was pretty cool.
I love that story. Actually, I had something similar with Convoy. He came up to me. Convoy used to work at the company I was at, and he came up and gave me a fist bump, and he said, "Convoy." I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, "I'm Convoy." I'm like, "Okay, cool, man." And he's like, "No, man, I went to F3. That's my name." I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome, man." It's just so funny that you had a similar experience with Biff.
Yeah. Fortunately, no one was around my computer at the time to see, why is this guy putting the name Pantyhose in an instant message to me?
Yeah,
Probably could have sparked some questions.
I was gonna say, you've kind of got a name. There's a guy within F3 Nation he's a physician, and his name is Assless Chaps. And so he has told his buddy to call me AC when you see him at the hospital in front of patients. Maybe you need call me PH or something. I had a funny thing the other day happen. I was talking to one of my team members that works for me, and he mentioned a fitness goal, and I start EHing him, and he goes, "Oh, is this the thing that Ron was talking about?" Which is Tonight Show. So here this guy is working. He's got his manager, and then his manager's boss's boss EHing him to this work. I'm sure he thinks it's like a requirement to work there, but
yeah,
I love it. So curious your thoughts too. I mean, as more and more guys have joined, how has that led to conversations about faith, or has it? I mean, what's been the impact there on your kind of faith journey?
Yeah, it's definitely impacted it. It's probably helped me grow and feel more comfortable in that. I grew up Catholic, and so I always had faith. It was always pretty near to me growing up, and even up to now. But I never talked about it like openly that much. So I never evangelized or anything like that. But I can remember one of the moments more recently was coming back from the Impact Retreat here that Birdman and Sparty put on last January, and I carpooled over there with Chucky and with Nailed It, and again, we all have kids that go to school together, but never would have envisioned myself having the conversations that we had, going deep into faith and into our faith background and what we feel and whatnot. With two other guys, wouldn't have thought that I would feel comfortable going there. So because I was never that way, and it was kind of always uncomfortable for me, and at some point still is. But yeah, so it's helped me, just the being around the guys and having those conversations, and some of those are on runs, and some of those are in workouts, and some of those are at coffee, but just being more comfortable with those conversations and with that thought process.
That's cool. Tell us a little bit more about the Impact Retreat. We've had a few guys. So Birdman talked about it. I think, I can't remember if when we interviewed Sparty or Grills, if they had done that yet or not. But tell me a little bit more about that from your perspective. What were some of we've heard about guys kind of sitting in a circle and crying was a highlight, I think, from Birdman. What are some of those things from that?
Well, it was something that I was just brutally honest at one point, that we kind of talked about, well, why are each of us here? Like, what was it that made us want to come? And there were some guys that had been a part of a retreat, a men's retreat or a faith-based retreat, like that before. I wasn't one of those. I had never done anything like that. And so I said, well, I knew Birdman was organizing this thing, and if he was doing it, then I was going to be here, So I didn't have, I didn't know what to expect, going in. But it was great. I think my biggest takeaway from it was really just probably just disconnecting for like 2 days. We had, and I some of this I want to, I don't want to tell everything about what it was, because I want guys to experience this for themselves and have their own journey through that. Because I'm hopeful that we'll do it again. I think we will. But I made it a point, to basically, we had a lot of small group exercises and then large group exercises, and we were staying in a great facility over in Iowa, and we were kind of like, there was 4 or 5 of us together staying in a house, right? And then we would come back and we'd have small group conversations, and then the entire group would go together. But I made it a point where, like, anytime we were in conversations, my phone stayed in the bedroom I was in. And so really, like, we don't often get to truly disconnect like that. So I think that was my biggest takeaway, was being able to take advantage of that and really think and reflect on life, and kind of what are my priorities, and where am I headed, and what's detracting me from getting there. So that was my biggest thing. And then obviously, just the fellowship, hang out with the guys in the evenings and things like that. But that was my biggest thing. And that's what I tell guys, that if and when we do it again, that's something that you should consider, put the phone away, and, be cognizant of what you're doing and what you're there for.
Much like our workouts or TNTs or any coffee that you're going to go to, each guy is going to take something different from whatever shared experience that is. So, and that's what I feel like the Plague and I get hearing from these guys is, like, on that retreat, hey, Birdman has his experience and what was, like, really meant something to him. Same with Sparty, same with Grills. And you just taking some opportunity to kind of disconnect and, kind of evaluate yourself, recalibrate your life. I mean, I think that's great. And kind of kudos to those guys for stepping up to the plate and trying something new. That's promoting this leadership. That's what we're trying to do. And, you kind of did the same thing with Helix. So I think that's a good segue into how did that come up? Where was your mind at? Were you hoping to take over an existing site? How were you approached? All the good stuff.
Yeah. So I had kind of been talking to, a handful of guys about taking over an existing site. And so at first I was just kind of honored to be part of that conversation, that folks looked at me in that way, to be able to take on that responsibility. And so I was looking forward to that. And then, there were some, it's still kind of new into this whole thing and trying to figure out how do we open new sites and when do we do that and how do we know where we're going. I kind of watched Birdman open the firm, and that started right after I joined. So I kind of saw what he was doing and learned a little bit there. And then again, my mind was just kind of focused on, well, yeah, if I get the opportunity to take a site over, then that would be awesome. And then as we got into, I think it was, early, into 2021, like spring of 21, there was conversations about, that's when our expansion happens and we open sites. And, I remember a couple different guys asked me, hey, would you be interested in launching a site? And, I was kind of taken aback a little bit, because I was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. But are you sure you want me to launch a site? Why don't I just take over an existing one? And so there were some things I needed to work around as far as schedule, and there were certain days that worked for me and days that didn't work for me. And that was one of the things that was good about taking over an existing site, was that site was going to work well for my schedule. But in the end, the opportunity came, and was able to work with the leadership to really get a location and then plant the Helix. And it was great. It was a great experience, and pretty awesome to be able to find a place to kind of come up with the name and kind of set the tone on what that place would represent to the PAX and to the community. And so all in all, it was great. So it's an opportunity that I was really happy for.
Yes. So what kind of went behind looking for the site? What did you have in mind? And then the name Helix, what does that stand for? Or?
Yeah. So we had, I think Plague and Tater and I had a number of conversations about sites, and it was always interesting to hear their commentary about, well, if you think about this, you think about that. And I remember we had a site picked out, and I was really happy because there was some history at this site, and I knew what name I wanted for it. I was like, oh, this is it. This has to be it. And then I can't remember if it was you or if it was Tater that said, yeah, this is a great site, but there's some houses that are really close. And I looked at the map. I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. There are. That probably wouldn't go over too well. So ultimately, we landed at Hillsborough Park at the Helix. And I struggled for a long time on how to come up with a name, because there wasn't any history there. And so I kept coming back to what does F3 meant to me, and what did the PAX mean to me, and so I kept coming back to the word perseverance, and it's kind of always been something that's in my mind, just in life, just with some of the upbringing that I've had, you always persevere, you just don't give up. And so you're kind of looking for symbols that stand for that. And I came across the Helix, and the Helix is probably most known for DNA, right? Double helix, and so it's something that's in all of us, right? And all of us, I feel, persevere in some way or another, right? So that's kind of how the Helix was born, was that in the sense of perseverance and never give up and just always persevere.
I love that, and I love the story about having your site picked out and what goes through that, because we just did a Murph, Plague and I did with a group of guys on Tuesday, and the scenario reminded me of like when you're skateboarding or something. You always go like, oh, that's a sweet spot. So like I could skate that spot. Well, we're doing a Murph here, and he's like, oh my God, I can't wait to plant a flag here. Like, this is the spot. I can't believe there's not a site here already. So that's just funny to see what kind of goes into it. And, how your vision kind of changes.
I was just looking at that, and to clarify, it was Tater that called out the houses at Picati Park, where we.
That's right. That's right. You don't want that. You don't want to be the one that tarnished that. That's why you need to get that out there.
That's right. The people need to know. No, and maybe, we still haven't got Tater on the podcast, so we got to take every chance, just kind of see if he's still listening.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what I love too is, just kind of thinking about the timelessness that a name should have, right? It shouldn't, we didn't want to call it like Pantyhose Express or something that's attached to you. And I think you did a good job coming up with something that every time I remember hearing you tell that story at the launch, and then also again, and guys really latched onto that, I think, and it made a really good shirt too, man. So, kudos to you on that. Tell me a little bit, so you're, here you are, you're the CEO of like a Fortune 100 company. So about leadership, right? And check them out on LinkedIn, folks. But anyway, but you're in a leadership role, right? At a very big company in town, and about leadership, and our goal in F3 is to reinvigorate male community leadership, right? So what was your, like, what do you feel like you learned, or were you able to learn, or was the Site-Q role more of a like giving it away type of thing? What was your experience throughout that?
That's a good question, Plague. I think, the one of the things I guess felt early on was just the sense of confidence that I guess that F3 Omaha, like the leadership had in me, because that's something that, I don't know, I guess, growing up and going through life, there's times where you kind of question your own judgment and, wonder, is this right or is this wrong? And so just seeing that guys that I look up to recognize that, I have leadership characteristics and, could take this and run with it goes a long ways, and so it's something that I try to instill into, coworkers of mine, whether that's, guys that are, are senior to me or people that are junior to me here at work, is like just making sure that I think a lot about, you don't have to be in a leadership position to lead. And that's often misunderstood and not said enough, but, lead from where you are and make sure that when people exhibit leadership that they're recognized for it and that they understand that they're being noticed. So, I think, again, being noticed is a good pat on the back and helps people continue to accelerate. And so that's one thing that's helped me along the way, and be confident in the feelings and the beliefs that you have. And you're not going to please everyone, but, if you're sure about yourself, take the next step forward and go for it.
That's phenomenal. And so we just had interviewed TC, and he made a similar comment, and he kind of referred to the F3 definition of exhortation, which is like encouragement on steroids. And after talking with him, and then I listened to it again, and I realized that I'm not very good at that. Like I really need to work on just being encouraging, so I've been trying to reach out. What's interesting is, like, when you encourage other people, it feels really good. Like as the person doing the encouraging. So, TC's challenge was try to encourage somebody, like try to encourage somebody too much, like see if they tell you to stop. And he kind of said, if it happened, it would be really funny. And like, it probably won't happen because people like to be recognized and encouraged, especially if it's meaningful. Love that. Yep. What about just other pieces of the Site-Q role? Do you feel like, did you have anything that you were really like aiming to do, like getting BQs or, exploring the site? I know it's a beautiful site with lots of room for activity.
Yeah. So one of the things that one of my goals that I was able to accomplish was I wanted to have, and this isn't original, and very few of my thoughts are original, but something I think I stole from Grills, is to have someone unique each week at the Helix, on the Q. And I think I looked at this when we passed the flag. I think in the 52 weeks, I think we had 49 different Qs there. So we had a couple people double up, but that was one of the goals. And I wanted to just, give a lot of different people an opportunity to come out and lead. And, you know, so it would have been easy to have some of my probably closest packs, you know, repeat, you know, every so often. But, and, you know, the tough part about that was there were some times I had to tell guys no. I was like, yeah, I'm you know, this is kind of a goal I'm trying to do. One of those may be on this call right now that maybe got declined for a second Q, but yeah, so we were able to do that, and so that was pretty awesome, I think.
You just ghosted me though. You didn't tell me why. You just ghosted me, man.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting to hear back. Can I queue at the? I'll have to reach
I could put you in contact with the Site-Q if you're trying to get on there.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and you know that's a unique part of town too that we hadn't really been in. So I think you attracted some guys from that area, which was really fantastic.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
What else about you know, kind of leadership? I think we like to give you a chance to give advice maybe to or encouragement to, you know, future packs or F&Gs or Site-Qs. What's on that list of kind of must do or things that guys should be thinking about?
Yeah, I think you know, as far as F&Gs go, I would say a couple of things. The first thing I'd say is you've got to give it like 4 or 5 workouts. I think you can't just come once and think that's what it is, because there's so much variability, whether it's, you know, the site, whether it's the queue that day, whether there was six guys there or 45. So I would say you know, even if you weren't completely happy with your first post, give it another shot and give yourself a handful of posts before you decide it's not for you. One of the things I can remember doing when I first started was, you know, look, and it was a lot easier 2 years ago than it is now, but looking through all the name-oramas and that how much that really helped get to know guys, right? And learn who, you know, you've kind of got your regulars that post at their regular locations, getting to know who those guys are and what their names are. And so that's the other thing I would say is watch the name-oramas, and at least the name-oramas that are in your area, right? It's hard to watch. I think we're up to 49 now. Is that what I heard this morning, Plague?
Well, it's 53, but we technically count the Murph site as 2. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You've got the roaming AO, so it's, you know, 53.
Yeah. So that's what I would say. And then, you know, for us veterans, I guess, you know, it's important to make sure that we're leaning out or reaching out to the F&Gs and the newer guys. And, you know, we all have been part of some sort of text that we probably didn't expect to be on, where someone recognized us and we're kind of like, how does this person know me, right? And that feels really good. Like, you know, there's no other way to say it, you know, because you think you're at a workout, you're new, you're part of 20 guys, you think that 2 guys know you there and recognize you, and as it turns out that there's other guys that are taking note. So, you know, for those of us that are around, that have been around for a while, that's what I would say. Make sure that we keep that culture that we've all known, and as we grow, and you know, a year from now it's going to look a hell of a lot different than it does now. So it's on us to make sure that the culture doesn't change, you know, because that's why it is the way it is now, and that's why guys are so apt to keep coming out.
You know, I love that challenge for the vets, right? You know, part of why we were doing this podcast was to talk to, you know, obviously established guys that had some form of leadership role, just to hear their stories. We were seeing an influx of new guys coming in, but then, you know, there's also the dip, right? The guys that have been in, they've maybe been in a leadership role and have stepped away, found a successor, and, you know, sometimes they phase out. Or, you know, their involvement dips, right? I guess what has been your experience since kind of, you know, finding a successor and stepping away from your side as a Site-Q? I mean, mine, you know, I went from posting 3 to 4 times a week to post once. I will say, whatever. I do have a kid, so that's my excuse. I got a newborn kid, so I don't feel too bad about it.
Pony, I thought you were going to say you just traded that time to try to finish Free to Lead. You still working on that?
You know what? I finished it, and no one can take that away from me. It did take. I'm not going to say how long it took me to read it, but I did finish it.
And you're a lawyer. You read all day. That's like, I don't get it. All right.
Yeah. All right. I've led us off course. So since passing the shovel, so it was hard at first. It was kind of hard to think about. Like I think I would have just stayed on. And not that we have to pass the flag, but that's kind of just the nature, right? And let someone else step in. So Truly's been doing a pretty good job. I think the other day he had 30 plus guys there, and I was kind of thinking to myself, well, hell, maybe I should have passed the flag to him 6 months ago, if that's the case. But I think what was interesting is there, like I said, it was kind of a hard transition. It was hard to think about early on because, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed being there. I enjoyed bringing coffee and kind of taking the ownership of that. But, something happened like, probably even like the couple weeks leading up, and then in the weeks since then, that there's a feeling that, came over that it's like, no, this is the right thing, and he's doing great. And I think it helped me kind of understand that, he was the right guy, and that was the right choice to make. So it's been good. It's kind of cool to see that, and just to kind of step back and look at it from a little bit different perspective now. You kind of look at it a little bit more from the outside in. So it's been fun. It's been good.
It's definitely interesting to hear people's different perspectives, right? Because you get some guys that won't be named that are probably relieved to pass it on. Some guys that are, dealing with a new sense of, hey, I did kind of start this thing, and I want to make sure it continues to be good. And then you've got people like Plague that never want to let it go, and they regret passing it up.
That's right. That's right.
I love that. I think, it's interesting, I guess. So when you handed off the shovel flag, is Chucky still mowing the grass there at the
well, he mows his patch.
Okay. Got it.
The little 4x4 square that he works out on, he maintains still. That was part of the agreement.
That's good. No, I love it. I think as we're continuing to grow too, I think retention is huge, right? When you look at numbers over time, we've got a lot of guys that have posted one time. It's like 1,500 guys, but active packs, maybe 200-300, maybe. So like, where are the other 1,200 guys that have been one time? They're not all at the CrossFit gym, right? They're not all in Orange Theory. Some of them are back to their couch, and they're sadder clowns than they were before they came. So, I think there's some strategies and tactics we can put in place in the future to do that. I do. I like hearing your most favorite and your least favorite exercise. It's becoming more popular. We kind of had that question, and we got rid of it, but the listeners are asking. So indulge us. What are your what's your most favorite and your least favorite exercise?
You'll have to follow up with me and let me know which listeners are asking for you. I
think you got to have listeners to ask any questions.
Oh.
Okay, so Honey Stinger. It's Honey Stinger. He's the one that wants to know.
Gosh, that's tough. But my go-to for Mary or for core is flutter kicks. I think it's because I remember doing that. I was in basic training, and I remember doing those a lot in basic training. So I feel like I'm really, really good at them. That's my favorite. Least favorite, I think I'm probably on the khakis boat on this one on hydraulic squats. I don't like them.
All right, adding a check mark to that column. That's still the winner. Were you in the military?
I was. I was in the National Guard for 6 years.
Oh man, how did we miss that in your story? Okay.
I don't know. It'll have to be episode 2.
Episode 2. Hey, I'm down. We're looking to pass the shovel flag for the podcast if you're interested.
Yeah, these are actually tryouts. So
love it.
It's a pretty good submission on your end.
Yeah, the last question, and this one I really have to give Pony props for, because this is really just his heart, not mine. But we do want to know what's when we see you in the gloom, how can we encourage you? How can we be praying for you? What do you need encouragement for?
Whew. Boy, that's tough. I think I just need encouragement for patience. I think sometimes I think one of the gestures I have is probably impatience, and one of the things that I think, and I don't think this is just me, I think a lot of us struggle with, is probably being kind to the people that we're closest to. And oftentimes I think to myself that I'm a hell of a lot nicer to the guys I see at 4:30 and 5:30 every morning, sometimes than I am to the people that are in the four walls of my house. And I think there's probably a lot of us that could probably agree with that, or maybe say the same thing. And so that's one thing it's heavy on me right now that I've been thinking a lot about is just kind of making sure I'm kindest to the people that are closest.
Perfect, man. I love it. Yeah. Like to take us out at a Namerama, featuring virtual fist bumps here. So I'll start us off. Brandon Flehardy, 36, The Plague.
The Plague.
John Whitworth, 30, Pony Express.
Hey!
Express. Matt McConville, 41, Pantyhose.
Pantyhose. Do we do like a snap? Like you're snapping the pantyhose?
I haven't figured one out yet. I mean, you could do this, but then, that just doesn't look right.
The G-string, he's got a snap. They do snap after his. Maybe we need to. All right.